Have you ever heard of the parable about the rich American banker advising the poor fisherman on how to become wealthy? He tells him that if he becomes a wealthy fisherman, he'll be able to retire someday in a small seaside village where he can sleep in every day, go fishing all he wants, play with his children, take long naps, enjoy long strolls in the evenings, and socialize with his friends. The reason why the American's advice is so funny is because his idea of the ultimate lifestyle to achieve is the life that the poor fisherman is already living. Hearing this humorous parable many years ago, I had to ask myself, if I had all the money in the world, what would I do? What would my life look like? Many people, I realize, would spend their money on living a luxurious lifestyle, and that's perfectly fine, but not everyone's that way. Not Warren Buffett, and certainly not me. I would use it to live a simple, financially secure, and carefree, comfortable lifestyle, doing all of the creative stuff that I love to do, which actually costs very little to do. Once I realized that my ideal lifestyle would be very cheap, I realized I didn't need to break my back to achieve such a simple lifestyle. I just needed to make it happen. And that's the life I'm living here in the Philippines. Millions of Filipinos and foreigners alike are not only living, working, and retiring here on less money, but are also more easily able to afford a better quality of life. That's because how much you earn is not nearly as important as how much you earn above the amount it costs you to survive, also known as your basic cost of living. Now, before you ditch your dead-end job there, grab a bicycle taxi to the airport, and hop on the next overnight flight to Manila, there's a bit more you need to know first. Like, while millions of foreigners have succeeded in lowering their cost of living by moving here to the Philippines, many have not. That's because achieving a low cost of living isn't a guarantee, it's a process. So if your goal is to live here inexpensively, you still need to do certain things to lower your cost of living and not do other things which are guaranteed to increase your cost of living. I think that one of the greatest things about moving to the Philippines is the lower cost of living. Take advantage of it. It's a wonderful opportunity to save more money, invest, and become wealthier. When I tell Filipinos that I'm a rich Filipino, poor Americano, they often scoff with disbelief. That's because many Filipinos think Americans are all rich. Americans know better. However, many of us are equally mistaken about Filipinos, thinking they're all poor. How did this crazy mix-up happen in the first place? Well, I believe it's because appearances can be deceiving. When it comes to Americans, about 80% are living with extreme debt, not just from credit cards, but also from having purchased luxury houses and cars. That means that nearly 80% of Americans appear rich who really aren't. Americans usually earn enough money to pay their bills, like their house and car payments, but most don't have any money left over afterwards. That's not the definition of wealthy, that's the definition of living payday to payday. Over 60% of Americans live exactly like that, with no extra money to put into savings or build their wealth. I know precisely what that's all about because that's how I was living before I moved to the Philippines. Now, as for how Filipinos appear poorer than they really are, well, that's a bit more complicated. One reason is because in many areas, Filipinos can build and live in whatever kind of structure they want. Because of that, there's no need to invest a large amount of money into building an expensive house. Also, no one around here shames anyone for what kind of house they live in. This is, after all, a very laid-back tropical country, and we enjoy an indoor and outdoor lifestyle. So there's no need for thick walls or insulation, not even glass windows. Imagine being able to build the most inexpensive and simple house to live in, with absolutely no restrictions. That's what's possible here. In fact, traditional native homes made of bamboo are still being built and lived in here. The cost to build a small nipa hut starts at just $200. So while some Filipinos can and do build expensive houses, many don't. Building or buying an expensive house doesn't really have the same mass appeal here that it does in the US. Another reason Filipinos may appear poorer than they are is because many Filipinos are very frugal. In fact, more frugal than Warren Buffett, the multi-billionaire American investor who, despite having a net worth of over $135 billion, still lives in the same traditional home and all-American neighborhood he's lived in since 1958. Like Buffett, Filipinos are very traditional, easygoing, and down-to-earth. You need to know what is meant by the average basic cost of living. It generally refers to the cost of basic necessities. In other words, it's the cost of living a simple lifestyle, without all the bells and whistles. So no pricey upgrades or add-ons, kind of like flying economy class instead of first class. The cost of living figure, the $500, is actually a mathematical average of all of the basic cost of livings throughout the entire Philippines, from the most expensive cities here to the cheapest villages. Just like in the US, some parts of the Philippines is much cheaper than other parts, meaning you can expect to pay much less, like as little as $250 a month or less, for basic necessities in the cheapest areas, and as much as twice, like $1,000 a month or more in the most expensive areas. The $500 figure is also the average for a single individual, not a couple nor a family. Those would, of course, be higher. The bottom line is, if you're looking for a low cost of living, you need to pick a cheap place to live. It's not rocket science, right? Yet, many people do bypass this step, end up moving to an expensive area, and want to know why the heck it's so expensive when everyone's saying it's so cheap to live here. Well, now you know. Once you do locate a cheap place to live, you're still going to need to rent an affordable, basic housing unit. Not anything luxurious or expensive. And you'll need to make sure you're getting a fair price for that rental and not being overcharged, which can happen to foreigners if they allow it. I suggest having a Filipino friend ask for the price before you show your face. Don't worry, landlords will understand why you're doing this. Also, you can't expect to keep your cost of living low if you're going to run your electric bill up hundreds of dollars by using an air conditioner, etc. You need to think and act frugally, and use a fan instead of air conditioning. You also need to be a frugal shopper, seeking out the lowest prices for everything. And you can't go around shopping at more expensive establishments just because you can, or allowing people to charge you more than the locals just because you're a foreigner. You need to be diligent and smart in getting the lowest prices for everything. Also, if you're serious enough to pick up and move to a foreign country to lower your cost of living, you might want to leave any expensive habits behind. For example, if you're guilty of buying and driving expensive vehicles, playing the slots, smoking like a chimney, drinking like a fish, shopping till you drop, or eating like a pig. My advice, before you venture overseas to lower your cost of living, is to remove the caviar from the menu. One of my most difficult things to stop doing when I moved here to the Philippines was stop spending money. Whatever it is for you, if you want to live cheaply, you need to learn to live as frugal as a frugal Filipino. Okay, let's move on to growing up. I'm talking about in your home country, where you should be pretty good at identifying and avoiding negative people and situations because that's where you grew up. Unfortunately, when you move to a new country, you're presented with a whole new world of people and situations you've never experienced before, which unfortunately means you're going to be going back to learning from making some mistakes. You'll be testing new waters, getting your feet wet, realizing when you're swimming with the sharks, and realizing when you're completely safe. While I was going through culture shock back in 2018, I was tempted more than once to give up and go back home to the US. That's because it's not easy to let go of your past thinking, attitudes, beliefs, ideals, and your cultural norms. However, to fully adapt to a new country, its people, culture, food, and lifestyle, you need to commit to the adaptation process, to immerse yourself in your new environment, and have an undying patience necessary to make it through the very tough adaptation. It does take a long time to fully evolve and to enjoy your new home and life for all it is and for all it isn't. The national poverty incidence among families in 2023 was recorded at 10.9% in the Philippines. This is equivalent to 2.99 million Filipino families without enough income to meet their basic food and non-food needs. In 2023, the official poverty rate in the United States fell 0.4 percentage points to 11.1%. There were 36.8 million people in poverty in 2023, not statistically different from 2022. One thing that increases a lot of men's cost of living here is taking on a wife and other dependents who don't have any income. Some don't realize how costly that's going to be until after they've done it. Maybe they thought because the Philippines is so inexpensive, they would be able to easily afford a wife and child. But in reality, they can't, or it's not as easy to do as they envision from afar. When getting married and having children, no matter where you live in the world, most guys not only increase their cost of living, but do so exponentially. If a guy moves here whom met his partner online, he may not know her as well as he thinks he does, especially if she's not been completely honest with him. In fact, he may not know her at all. And should he end up with a lady who expects him to provide her and the kids with a privileged American lifestyle, well, he could seriously be in over his head, because that kind of lifestyle doesn't come cheap in any country, including the Philippines. I suggest before taking on any new relationship and huge responsibility to do your due diligence. Take your time, don't get engaged very quickly, and don't sign any long-term contracts. Don't do anything permanent until you know everything there is to know about your new partner, her positives and her negatives, her country and her culture, her expectations. Most importantly, realize her country and culture is completely different than yours. Things that you may expect may not even exist here, and things that she may expect may not exist in your list of acceptable demands. Also, just like in your home country, you need to be aware of people who may befriend you or romance you simply because they want to take advantage of you for your money. Many Filipinos will indeed think you're a rich foreigner. And even if you're not, expect a lot from you as a rich foreigner. Some will actually come right out and ask you for money, having absolutely no shame in doing so, because they think you have oodles of cash. And of course, because they watch those YouTube channels with all the foreigners handing out their money like candy. So don't blame them. Blame those foreigners with those silly YouTube channels. Don't approach anyone unless you're absolutely sure their motives are good. Best to just say hi and keep walking. And be careful with people who simply hang around you to take advantage of your kind generosity, because eventually you probably will offer it up and they will never reciprocate. My advice is to make it a habit of ending such relationships rather quickly, as if you don't, you're likely to attract more of the same. Or worse, you might start calling those people your friends and thinking that in order to have friends here, you have to pay them, which is not the case. Let me read you 2 different job offers and you tell me which one is the better job offer. The first one, living and working in the Philippines as a Starbucks manager, earning $1,000 a month with a basic cost of living of $500 a month. Here's the second job offer. Living and working in the United States as a Starbucks manager, earning $5,000 a month with a basic cost of living of $5,000 a month. Okay, which of those 2 job offers is the better one? If you're thinking that the one in the Philippines might be the better one, I would happen to totally agree. And why? Well, first of all, it pays $500 a month over the basic cost of living, giving the employee an additional $500 a month to save, spend, or invest. Whereas the U.S. job, despite earning 5 times more money, would take every penny earned just to survive, because the basic cost of living matches the $5,000 a month salary. Furthermore, because the basic cost of living is so much cheaper here in the Philippines, An additional $500 a month will go a lot further here in the Philippines than it ever would in the U.S. The average basic cost of living here in the Philippines for a single individual is in fact right around $500 a month. That's roughly 75% lower than it is in the U.S. Moving to the Philippines should be a positive life event and not only provide you with a lower cost of living, but a better quality of life, a safer life, as well as a life with increased financial security, and hopefully with increased wealth. But just like anywhere else in the world, it's up to you to navigate through the good and bad, to keep focusing on the good and steering clear of the bad. The one who is going to be ultimately responsible for your success and your happiness, as well as your attitude and your choices, is you. It's up to you to make your life the best it can be. If you are one of the millions of people dreaming of moving here to the Philippines, or to any other country for that matter, don't waste your entire life daydreaming about it. Life is too short. Once you figure out what your ideal life looks like, go out and make it happen. When I was considering moving here from the U.S., I was terrified, but I didn't let it stop me. This was my apartment right here. About $5,000 per month, in pesos that is. Only 100 in US dollars. Now, how I ended up at this apartment was that I was in a relationship for about 4 years, and I moved here to start a new life with my partner. Unfortunately, when I showed up, he took off, and so I was left alone here in the Philippines. And at that point I had to decide, do I stay here and try to make a go of it in a place I know very little about, or do I leave and go back to the United States? Well, if you know me very well, you know that I am a very courageous person, and even when I don't know where I'm at on the other side of the world, I'll make the best go of it, and that's what I did. Fear stops a lot of people from moving overseas, from chasing their dreams, and from living their lives to the fullest. I believe in facing our fears, and taking on serious life goals and not giving up so easily on them. Knowing how much fear plays a big role in a lot of people's lives, I leave you with this. Always do what you are afraid to do.
Whatever makes you happy, it just depends on you. So think a little bigger and dream what you could do. You could fly a ship through outer space, be anything you choose. You could do something heroic and make the evening news. You could sing in front of millions or just whistle by a stream. It could all come true tomorrow if you only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. It could all come true tomorrow if you only dare to dream. You could be a famous film star, the one that broke the mold, or an Olympic winner with medals made of gold. You could invent something amazing that changes the whole scheme. The world can be your platform if you only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Yes, the world can be your platform if you only dare to dream. Yes, a little help and a little luck will surely come your way. Don't be put off by anyone. Why not begin today? Show your determination. Take every chance that comes. Achieving your ambitions. Work hard and having fun. So finally you satisfy your heart's desire supreme. 'Cause life will work its magic if you only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Yes, life will work its magic if you only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Only dare to dream. Yes, life will work its magic if